All right, everyone. Welcome back to the Boxing Podcast. Today's topic, the face of boxing, arguably, Canelo Alvarez, undisputed middleweight champion of the world. Many people want to see him fighting David Benavidez, coming off of his recent win over I'll just say, not-so-game Charlo. Canelo looks to come back against Jamie Munguia. Angelo, what do you think of this fight?
I think a lot better than what people want to give credit for. I think that when you look at the fight with Derevyanchenko, with Munguia, it didn't look his best, but then the fact that he came back and he did to John Ryder what Canelo couldn't do, I think that speaks volume. And I think that Munguia is a little bit lesser known. I think the big fight that people would have liked to see him have before the Canelo fight would have been the Berlanga fight, which is what I would have enjoyed to see, but I think it's a good fight. I think it's a challenge for Canelo. I think when you look at it and you know that John Ryder got stopped by Munguia and Canelo couldn't stop Ryder, so what does that say? Of course, Canelo may have had some jitters fighting John Ryder in Mexico, but at the end of the day, when you look at the two guys, Canelo's more accomplished, obviously. There's no argument there, but recently, Munguia's done what Canelo couldn't.
Okay, yeah, I kind of disagree there. I think Ryder was much more willing to kind of engage with Munguia. I think Canelo kind of looked worse in that specific instance, just because he found a more antithetical opponent in John Ryder. And I think Canelo's experience kind of on the big stage is going to be a difference maker. I don't think Munguia's resume holds a candle to Canelo, like you said, and I think that's going to be a difference maker when it comes to this fight specifically.
Yeah, I mean, stepping into the spotlight's big, but at the end of the day, I think a guy like Jaime Munguia is ready to step into the spotlight. Cinco de Mayo weekend. I think it's gonna be a great fight, but I don't think the spotlight's gonna get to Munguia too much, and I might eat my words Saturday night, but that's how I feel about it.
Well, let's see if you're right about that. Another recent opponent, notably for Munguia, is Derevyanchenko. Kind of an elephant in the room for Munguia here. Derevyanchenko carried really a desperate Munguia through 12 rounds. And going into the final round, many had the Ukrainian warrior ahead until he was dropped by a body shot. The Mexicans' own team had previously asked for the fight to only be 10 rounds, which would have resulted in Munguia's first defeat had the fight only gone 10 rounds, as Derevyanchenko was ahead on the scorecards. What do you think of Munguia's performance against Derevyanchenko, and do you think that tells us anything going into this fight?
Yeah, I think at the time I questioned Munguia. I like Munguia. I like Canelo a bit more, but I like Munguia too. But I question a little bit more, but it's starting to be a little bit of a trend in combat sports, not just boxing, but these guys are starting to have some lackluster performances, and I don't think that it's gonna affect Munguia too much. I know he didn't look great against Derevyanchenko. I know that that fight, like you said, if it would have gone 10 rounds, but at the end of the day, when he needed it, he dropped Derevyanchenko in that 12th round, and ultimately got the win. So I don't. It doesn't sit in my mind too much, especially after the way he did Ryder. He went and just dominated Ryder. So it doesn't sit in my mind too much, but you're right. If that Munguia shows up to the fight this Saturday night, he's not going to get the opportunity to land a body shot in the 12th round.
And that's kind of what I think. I think that the Derevyanchenko fight kind of showed that Munguia, once he faces some opposition, I think it might be hard for him to remain poised and calm and able. He did get the drop in the 12th round over Derevyanchenko. So clearly the frustration didn't get to him enough to cost him the fight in that case. But I think Canelo, we can both agree, is on a different level than Derevyanchenko. And if he catches you, there's a good chance he's going to finish you off. Going off of that, they have another common opponent in Liam Smith. Liam Smith being the opponent that Munguia actually went the distance with after dropping him in the 6th round, whereas Canelo was able to stop Liam Smith in the 9th round after being cut in the 2nd round as well in that fight. And after being cut also, I think Liam was more willing to engage with Canelo, which kind of gave him the opportunity to get that stoppage. What do you think of both their performances against Liam Smith?
Yeah, Liam Smith is a warrior, man. Again, I think you're also seeing maybe a bit of a more eager Canelo in that Liam Smith fight. I don't know. I don't want to say that Canelo's lost it a little bit, but we have talked before that he likes the golfing now. He likes the posting his modeling on Instagram. And I think Munguia's in the position that Canelo was a few years ago, where he's ready to just go fight. And I think that Liam Smith, great opponent, and like I said, at the time you had the dog in Canelo, and you could have it again. We've seen less golfing from Canelo this training camp, which I pay attention to because I love golfing. But so maybe you do get vintage Canelo, and if you get vintage Canelo, I would argue that not a lot of people can beat him not only at 168, but I would argue that not a lot of people can beat him at 175. So if you get vintage Canelo, I think it's not going to be, it's going to be the same thing that he did against Liam Smith, but I think it'll be faster. But I just don't think we're going to see that. I think we're going to see, the Canelo that we saw against Ryder a little bit, and I think we're going to see the Munguia that we saw against Ryder.
Sure. So just going into it, how do you see this fight going? Do you see success for Canelo in the early rounds with the late round stoppage? Do you see this going the distance? Do you see Munguia having any success?
Yeah, I see a very close fight in the first 6 to 7 rounds. And to be honest with you, Cisco, I might be crazy. Call me crazy. I see a very close fight throughout, but I see in those middle rounds, I think we see a big glimpse of what Jaime Munguia can do. I don't think he'll stop Canelo. I don't think he'll drop Canelo. I think he'll do enough, though, that at the end of the fight, we're going to be sitting there with Canelo getting his hand raised in a decision, a unanimous decision. However, I think some of those questionable rounds are going to go to Canelo when they could have gone to Munguia, like we've seen in boxing recently. The judges are not very on top of it. So I think we'll be sitting there saying, this Jaime Munguia kid is really good. He needs to go nowhere. Close fight, and I think the early rounds are going to go, flip-flop a little bit, not much activity. Middle rounds are going to go to Munguia, and Canelo will finish off the fight strong.
So you think Munguia could be a victim of a Barbosa type of judging, huh?
I don't know about a Barbosa type of judging, but definitely a close fight that we could be saying at the end of the day, it could have gone either way. However, I think that Munguia could also go late and get caught by Canelo, where I don't think that can happen to Canelo. I don't think that it can get late and Canelo can just get caught. I don't believe that can happen, but I do believe that vice versa it could happen to Munguia, where he just gets caught late and just isn't able to recover.
I actually think your prediction is a pretty safe bet. I think you can bet on this fight being pretty close. I actually think that it might not be very controversial. Maybe close and a good showing for Munguia, but ultimately I think Canelo will clearly win at least 7 of those rounds. I do think though that there is a chance in round 7, 8 things start to catch up to Munguia. He maybe takes Canelo light, and Canelo can finish the show. He can. If he tastes blood, I could see Canelo rushing in and stopping Munguia, or at least hurting him. Another thing too
that we got to remember is Canelo. It's unfortunate because Canelo and Munguia have shown each other so much respect, but Oscar De La Hoya didn't help Munguia's case in this fight, because I think there's a little bit even more animosity for Canelo going into this fight. So you're right, he might go for blood, later in the fight.
Well, let's talk about that. That's a great transition. I would say that selling this fight more Munguia is the legendary Mexican-American boxer turned promoter Oscar De La Hoya, who recently engaged in a war of words with Canelo at their press conference. Do you think that will play a part in this? Do you think Canelo will want to take out his frustration for Oscar on Jamie?
What? I think he does. However, I think Canelo's got the experience and the patience to know that that's not the right way to go into a fight. However, I think if he does hurt Munguia, Jamie, as you like to call him, I think if he does hurt him, then some of that might kick in and he might go for the kill. And I don't hate that. I think there's a lot of frustration and it's unfortunate that it's Munguia on the other end, but I think Canelo really wants to take out De La Hoya's boy.
Well, I think even more interestingly coming out of this fight, a lot of tension has kind of built up between Canelo and De La Hoya for a long time. neither of them have been quiet about their distaste for each other. Canelo often saying that he thinks nobody likes De La Hoya, especially when the subject of Dana White and other promoters are brought up and their issues with him. Do you think coming out of this fight, we see a future where Canelo could still fight Golden Boy fighters, or do you think that bridge has kind of been burned already?
I don't know. I think that there's still there. I think he can still fight Golden Boy fighters, but there's definitely something that's going to have to be figured out because like you said, there's no shortage of these two dudes. I might not even say don't like each other. These two dudes may hate each other. And so I think that it's going to be harder now knowing that. McGregor threw out an interesting idea the other day. Why don't they just go handle it in bare knuckle fighting and fight each other?
The last question I have regarding this fight. Let's assume Canelo walks out with a decisive win, whether that be by stoppage or clear decision victory. Do you think this pushes Canelo towards David Benavidez, or do you think that ship has kind of sailed?
The ship has not sailed, and I'm glad that we're going to touch on this because I know it's the subject that everybody touches on every time they talk to Canelo, right? Especially this week. He said, and I don't know where he said it, so I can't tell you exactly what show it was on, but he said that he could fight David Benavidez Saturday night after the Munguia fight. That's a pretty confident guy, right? It sounds pretty confident, and I told you Canelo's not a duck. I've said this before. It's out there. It's on YouTube. It's on the podcast. Canelo, if he wins this fight, especially decisively or via finish, and he does not fight David Benavidez, he is just flat out scared of David Benavidez. And that's all I have to say on that. If he does not fight him, he's scared. He needs to fight him.
All right. Well, I can't say I disagree, honestly. That fight has been marinating for what feels like forever now. I will say that I still would hesitate to call Canelo a duck. And if I had to guess, I would say that he is he's holding out for a Riyadh season payday, I think is what he's waiting for. Some big payday from Saudi Arabia, from His Excellency, is what he's waiting for. And I think that if they step up and do offer some kind of crazy payday, Canelo will do it. Or even if they don't, I think enough fan demand is going to be there, especially after this fight, assuming Benavidez picks up a win too in the near future. I think everything's kind of aligned that they have to do it Mexican Independence Day weekend in September.
You would think so, man. And I don't know. Imagine Canelo wins that fight. If he retires off that fight, what a career. I think he wins that fight, retire, go beat up on some YouTubers, some MMA guys. What a career. But if he doesn't, we're going to definitely throw a podcast out there, sis, because it's going to be questionable. And I think me and you will disagree and maybe argue a bit more than we normally do on that one.
Well, we're going to have to wait and see. That we should have answers, hopefully, in the post-fight interview come May 4th when Canelo takes on Jaime Munguia. Angelo, what are your final predictions on this fight? Decision, TKO, KO, who's taking it?
I'm going Canelo by unanimous decision. So that's my final one. What do you got? Let's hear yours.
I'm going to take Canelo by TKO victory in the 9th round.
9th round. We'll see who's right.
All right. Thanks, everyone, for watching. We'll see you guys next time.